Hello, everyone. I'm Brandy Clevenger, the writer and creator at Being Fibro Mom, the blog that's all about learning how to thrive the family life while living with fibromyalgia. This is Fibro Live, a show where we talk all about the latest and greatest in fibromyalgia news, research, and other topics. And this is my co-host, Donna Birch. She is the writer and creator of FedUpWithFatigue.com. Thank you, Donna, for joining us again.
Hey, Brandy.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about how to cope with the anxiety of going to doctor's appointments. I know I have anxiety with going to doctor's appointments. Do you have anxiety with that, Donna?
It depends on the doctor. So I get a lot of anxiety if I'm getting ready to see a new doctor.
Mm-hmm.
My existing doctors, most of them I've been with them now for several years, so it's that issue isn't quite as bad. I kind of know what to expect, but definitely new doctors, I get anxiety on that because you just always feel like they might just make you typical fibro stuff that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. And how often do you go to the doctors in like a given year, like average?
For like a fibro Lyme kind of thing?
Yes.
Or for other stuff. So
I guess anything in general, really.
Let me think. So like maybe every 2-3 months.
So you have a little bit more frequency than I do. Like I'm like once every other year right now because of my anxiety from my doctor's appointments.
Yeah. Most of mine is because I'm doing active treatment for Lyme now, and so that we're continually having to see the doctor in order to change protocols and that kind of thing. And then I have some specialists. Like I have a back problem that I'm dealing with now, so that requires more visits and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to talk about during the show is the frequency also has an effect on that anxiety. A little bit of backdrop of why we decided to do this show. Last week, I had a doctor's appointment that was scheduled. It's my first doctor's appointment in over a year. I won't tell you exactly how long it's been because it's really bad to go that long without regular doctor visits for anyone, especially someone living with fibromyalgia. Especially one that is living with fibromyalgia and is a fibromyalgia advocate in the community. I should be going way more often. However, my anxiety of going to those doctor's appointments have been so great that it prevents me from, and like Donna was saying, it's just a combination of doctors not believing me in the past and making that such a bad experience for me that I don't want to go to the doctor again. The doctor that I'm seeing now, I've seen her now twice. So she is a new doctor to me, and no matter how much I like her personally, I'm still have that apprehension of talking about something that, for many years doctors told me was not real. So I have that anxiety. But anyway, last week I had a doctor's appointment scheduled for like weeks, and I had it scheduled for last Thursday. And I didn't want to do it. I had my daughter was job shadowing me for the day. So I kind of had to, because I had to set that example for her. And when I went, like it made it, I was happy. I even came home and did a Fibro Live video in my parenting group. And I was like, yay, I went to the doctor. I'm so excited about it. But then I started thinking about, where that anxiety comes from and how it plays into my present doctor appointments and my future doctor appointments. And people started sharing about having that same anxiety. So Donna, when you go to a doctor's appointment, how soon does your anxiety kick in and how long does it last? What are your symptoms of it?
So it's pretty much leading up to the visit, and I'm getting a little bit of feedback from your side, but it's pretty much just the days leading up to the appointment, and the sitting in the waiting room, and once the appointment starts, I'm one of those people that I tend to I tend to put my guard up, my shield up when I'm when I'm in that situation. So once the actual appointment starts, I don't generally feel like a ton of anxiety. At that point, I'm just very guarded, kind of being on edge of, are they going to say anything that like is an implication that I'm at all like a hypochondriac or crazy, or, try to put me on
Wait, have you had doctors say crazy things to you in the past?
Basically just kind of discrediting, symptoms and I had the standard story of most people with, well, a lot of people with fibro, going to lots of doctors and them just basically saying, we don't know what's wrong with you. You look fine. You seem healthy. Nothing's showing up in your test. You must just be depressed. That was like the big thing that I ran into when I was going through that situation of, you must just be depressed, and just trying to put me on antidepressants. So there's still some anxiety around that, and still just a defensiveness. I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of faith or trust in the medical system at this point, because I feel like they failed me as a patient and have failed so many of us. So it's an unfortunate thing. It really is, for us to feel that way and to feel like, we have to go in there with defenses up.
And it's not fair. It's not fair to the individual that's suffering from that, but it's also not fair to those physicians that really do want to take the time to help and try to figure out that mystery.
Yeah. And one of the things I would say, I know some people may have anxiety just even going to like their regular doctors. And I was thinking about that last night when after we had kind of discussed the topic a little bit, and what that kind of said to me in my gut is that if you're going to a doctor, and this is a doctor that you've been seeing multiple visits, and you're still feeling anxious about that process, then that's probably a clue that that's not the right doctor for you. There's something about that doctor that you're not feeling comfortable with.
That reminds me of an article that you had on your site. I remember reading an article that you wrote about pretty much turning the tables and kind of interviewing them and being happy with them and speaking up for yourself and shopping around to find that physician. And up until that point, I was sticking with the physicians that were assigned to me. Until I read that, it's common sense, but I never thought about saying, you know what, I don't have to accept this provider. I can look around for one that is willing to work for me. And I think a lot of us do forget about that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to touch on when we get to the tips section of today is,
So I'll stop jumping ahead.
Yeah, it's fine.
So an appointment for me, when I'm scheduling an appointment, my anxiety immediately starts. Yeah. And I start thinking about the past when I've had to see a new physician or settling with a physician that is telling me over and over again that there's nothing wrong. So that's when the anxiety starts. It will last for probably that whole day that I've set the appointment. Like the day that I actually make the appointment, the whole day I'll have anxiety. And then I'll just forget about it, because with the VA, you don't get an appointment immediately. It's like at least 4 weeks away. So I just forget about it. And then I'll see it pop up on my calendar like a week ahead. And I'm just like, ugh. And then the day before I'll have it. And then the morning of, I'll experience anxiety the whole morning. Like I'll have it's like my heart rate goes up. I get really sweaty palms. I start thinking about really irrational stuff, and I can't eat anything. It's hard for me to drink anything, and it will last like that. Even during the appointment that I had on Thursday, I was visibly shaking the whole time that I was there, because like you were saying about the defensive mechanism, I was waiting for her to say something that I would get defensive about, even though I know she's very open to the things that I talk to her about. And I'm very honest. Always be honest with your physician. I'm always very honest with her. I still have that anxiety. And if I start increasing, maybe it will lessen that anxiety. But again, I'm getting far ahead. So let's go ahead and talk about those tips on how to overcome that anxiety. What can we do? Because we have to face it. We have to go to the doctor. Like we have to be seen. We need to keep on top of our health. So it's important for us to go to these doctor's appointments. So Donna and I are going to share what we do, personally, what we do to be able to overcome that anxiety with going to a doctor's appointment. I'm going to go ahead and let Donna lead that off.
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking on what I mentioned previously about, making sure that you feel comfortable around your doctor. Because I went through so many different kinds of doctors, and throughout the process of trying to get diagnosed with fibro, and then ended up getting diagnosed with chronic Lyme in 2016, I think it was. It did help me form a not so great opinion of the medical system. So what I've started to do is I've started to try my best to try to weed out bad doctors. And by that, I mean doctors that don't believe in fibro and Lyme, doctors that, think it's in your head, that kind of thing. And so this takes a little legwork, but I found that it's worth it to go through this process. So what I do is I have my health insurance through my husband's employer. I will sit there and I'll go to the insurance portal. If I know I need to see a specialist, like a neurologist or something, I'll pull up who are the approved providers in my area. And I'll start with the ones that are closest to me. And then I'll take those names and I'll literally go to Google and I'll Google their names. And there are like several websites that allow patients to leave reviews on about those doctors. And so I literally go and I read the reviews on about the doctors, and almost always the patients are going to share their experiences. Now, one thing I've noticed is almost every doctor is going to have a negative review here and there, because that's just sometimes, patients just don't bond with a particular provider. But, kind of look for the overall picture. Is overall, does doctor get good reviews, a 4 or 5 star review? Are the patients mentioning that he has a good bedside manner? Are the patients mentioning that he, feels compassionate towards what they're going through? Kind of look for those key words. And then, from there, I'm able to kind of pick which doctor in the network seems to be, what might be the best fit for me. So again, that takes some time to do that, but it's helped me kind of steer me towards doctors that tend to have a little bit better of a bedside manner. And another tip I have, particularly for the fibro community, is reach out to your local fibromyalgia support group. Because those members, they are always going to know the best doctors that treat the best. We had a local support group here for a while, and there was a particular doctor that everybody was like, he's the one you want to go to for fibro. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to him because he wasn't in my insurance network, but it was very clear in speaking with the support group members, asking their opinion on doctors. His name kept coming up time after time after time. And there's a reason for that. It's because he's treating the fibro patients in a caring, compassionate way and is listening to them. So, that's one of the things I do to just try to steer clear of doctors that I think I might have a problem with, is, look them up and read those reviews before you make the appointment. Now, I'll say that I understand that that's not an option for everybody. For instance, like with you seeing doctors in the VA, I think those are kind of picked for you. Obviously there are insurance plans that your primary care has to refer, so you might not have a choice in that matter. Or if you're in the UK, you've got the national healthcare system, so you might not be able to pick your doctors. But if you have that ability, that's one way to lessen the bullshit factor.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought up the VA, because I want to say that with the VA, I didn't think that, because all those doctors that I got the bad image from, I didn't like going because they kept telling me that nothing was wrong with me. Those were when I was serving in the military and following when I had the VA care. And I thought, like, in the military, you got who you got and that was it. You had no say so. When I finally had my physician diagnose me with fibromyalgia, she was a VA physician, and one of the questions she had asked me in the visits following that initial diagnosis was, why wouldn't you tell your provider? Why wouldn't you request a different provider? And I told her, I'm kind of just stuck. And she said, no, you're not. You're not stuck. You can request it, and you might have to keep calling until you get that answer. You know, when you call about your cable bill, don't take the first answer that you get if you don't like it. Keep calling back, because you'll get a different representative until you find that answer, because not one person knows everything. So if you're for the VA, I mean, just keep calling until you finally get that answer. And it kind of like that whole, like, the squeaky wheel gets the oil grease. So I'm so bad at little phrases like that. I don't know why I insist on using them. But yeah, like, and with the reviews that Donna was saying about, when the reviews, don't try to go with that one bad review and just cancel it out. When I buy stuff off of Amazon, there's always going to be at least one negative review. And if there's not, something is going on. Like, that triggers something for me, too good to be true. So I do the same thing. I look at all the reviews and just see, like Donna was saying, the overall picture, like, overall, this product has these bonuses. And I do look at the negatives, and I kind of weigh them against each other. Is that worth it, or is it not? Maybe that was just an isolated incident with that particular person. Just don't discount everyone just because of that one bad review.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there anything else that you had?
Yeah, a couple of just organizational things that just make a doctor's appointment go a little bit more smoothly. I keep a Word document on my computer that it's like a complete medication list, so medications and supplements. And before is going to ask you for a list of your medications, like you end up having to write those in on your forms when you're first going in or whatever. And so just to be prepared, I keep that Word document on my computer, and then right before an appointment, I can just go in, open the file, add or subtract anything, print it out, and then just hand it to them. It just saves a little bit of time of having to try to pull that out of my brain or try to bring my Walmart app up and figure out what my prescription strengths are and all of that. And another thing I do is I always write down a list of questions. So I use the Evernote app on my phone, and you can also pull that up on your PC or on your laptop. And then leading up to the doctor's appointment, whenever I think of a question, I just open that app up and, put the question or a keyword or something just to jog my memory. And then, everything's in one place. You can take that to the doctor's appointment. Then you don't forget, because invariably if I go in there and I've got 5 things I want to ask about, if I don't write them down, I'm going to forget 2 of them at least. And then I've walked out of the appointment and not gotten the information that I needed. So I always write down my questions and take them with me. I always make sure that there's a way for me to take notes during the appointment. So, if you're printing your questions out and take them on paper, make sure you take a pen so you can jot down answers or recommendations or websites or, anything that the doctor gives you that you might want to refer to later on. And let me see, I'm trying to think what else. I think that I'll probably think of something else once you go, but those are kind of a couple of organizational things, and also things of finding a good doctor.
And there are apps to keep track of, like, symptoms, medications, and that sort of thing, isn't there?
Yeah, there are a lot of those. One that I've used before is called My Pain Diary, and it comes up on the App Store. I think it was like around $4.99 or something. But it's a pretty robust app. It actually has a section designated for fibromyalgia, so you can go in, and part of the app is a picture of a front and back of a body, so you can actually go in and press the body part where you're having the symptom, and
That's
it'll log it.
good.
And then
Instead of saying like right here.
yeah, right there. And then they have like for fibromyalgia, they have like a long list of different types of pain. So burning pain, stabbing pain, so you can get very, very minute in the detail. So that's one that I know about that I've personally used that seemed to be pretty good. But there are tons and tons of them, and obviously some of them are free, so you don't necessarily have to pay for an app. I just had gotten kind of conned on there. I think I watched one of their little review videos or something on YouTube. I was like, oh, it's fancy. It's only $5. So I got sucked in.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there's a lot of free apps out there. And I always think, like, if I buy this app, how likely am I to actually use it? Because if it's an app that costs money, it means it's very complicated, and the chances of me using it go down. So some tips that I have that I personally do is that I purposely put my appointments first thing in the morning. So when I schedule my appointment, I always get the very first slot that they have available. And it's usually, they open at 7:30. So usually 7:45, 8 o'clock. That way I don't have time for my brain to analyze it and get as worked up as if it was later in the day. So if it's later at like 3 or 4 o'clock, the whole day I'm just spent, like, I can't do anything. Like, my whole day is just consumed with thinking about that one thing that I have to do. Whereas if I go first thing in the morning, I really don't have all that time. I just have, like, from the time I wake up until the time I get there. So I'm more likely to be able to do it. Whereas if I think about it, I'm going to cancel it and I'm not going to go. Some other things that I do is just, it's really weird. Like, the next time I go to a doctor's appointment, I should really record myself, and forget that I'm recording myself. But when I go, I talk out loud to myself. So that way, when I speak it out loud, I can also hear it. It's kind of like when I get introduced to someone, I always say their name so I can remember it when I hear it. So when I'm driving to my appointment, I think, this is just an appointment. It's only going to last an hour. We can do this. Let's look at what, is the next exit. What's at the next exit? Or because I have to take the interstate to get down there. Or, I look at the cars. I try to distract myself by just looking and talking out loud, just hearing myself and doing that reassuring, oh, they got a new BJ's wholesale over there. Oh, that's going good. I just think out loud. It sounds really silly, but to hear myself not just talk about the appointment and to hear other things, it kind of just calms me. Or turn up that music or listen to a podcast that you want to listen to. Or you could do what I do. Just sign your doctor's appointment to be at the same time that your daughter is shadowing you for career day, and you're kind of forced into doing it. Some other thing, I think that's really the only things that I do is just talk about it, schedule it first thing in the morning. I do want to tell you, Donna, that I did talk to my doctor about that chronic Lyme test that you and I were talking about. Mm-hmm. And the first thing, I said to her, can I have the Lyme test? And she said, well, do you want acute or chronic Lyme? I was like, I didn't know there was a difference between acute Lyme and chronic Lyme. I don't know, but she said, and there's so many tests out there that, she's like, I have to narrow it down. And I was like, okay. But anyway, so those are the tips that I have. And also, like Donna was saying about writing down the questions and stuff, a couple of years ago, a blogging friend, her blog is fruitfulhome.com, I think is the name of it. But she said that she keeps a little medical book, like just a little tiny notebook. I mean, it's no bigger than like a little Post-it. And she would write down her questions in there because she would forget. And I thought that was just the most genius idea ever, because I make Post-it notes for everything. I mean, if you could see from my angle, I seriously have 8 Post-it notes right in front of me. And it never occurred to me to write those down. So when I get to the appointment, I actually don't forget. And like Donna said, if you have it, if you print it out, take that piece of paper so you can write down the notes. I sat down at my doctor's appointment Thursday with this pad of paper and a pencil, and I sat down and she goes, uh-oh, am I in trouble? You got a pad and paper. And I said, well, I don't want to forget anything that you're telling me, because my anxiety will start to subside once it starts to come over, but I don't want to forget everything, because either she's throwing too much information at me or I don't understand the big words that she's using or anything like that. So I write it down so that way I can have it later to reference by. Even when Donna was telling me about that chronic Lyme test to take, I wrote it down and I stuck it in the pad of paper with me and took it with me. Actually, here's my little paper, my little pad. See, that's what Donna was telling me. And I had little notes of what to ask her. And then I started writing down, especially names. She used a lot of doctors' names during the appointments, and I can't remember those names, but I do want to read about who this person is and what qualifications they have before I actually say, yes, I want to see them. So
yeah.
That's all the tips that I have. Did you think of any more?
Yeah, you jogged my memory on a couple of things. So it's funny that you set up your appointments to be an AM, because I do the exact opposite. I always set up my appointments for afternoon, because I know that I kind of drag butt in the mornings. And so I never like try to make them in the morning, because I just don't want to be pushed to like get out of bed and get dressed and all of that, and have to be to a place. I do sometimes, one tip, and I don't always remember to do this, but it's a good tip, is to, when you call and get your appointment, ask for the first appointment after their lunch break. And that kind of piggybacks on what you were saying. You end up not waiting. So most doctors' offices will take their lunch break between 12 and 1 or 1 and 2. So ask for that first or second appointment after they come back from lunch, and then you're not having to wait, for those later afternoon appointments or later morning appointments once the doctors kind of get behind. And one other thing I wanted to mention is, I've had to change my Lyme doctors. I think I'm on like my third one now, because of just trying to take different approaches to treatment. And what I've done on them is I've actually taken my partner to the first appointment. So my husband has gone with me. Now, I guess some people would say, oh, that's kind of weird to have your husband go. But I looked at it as, it's like one more person that's like hearing the doctor, listening to what he or she is saying, seeing their mannerisms. And it's also like to have a second listener, so that if I don't get everything, he's heard it as well. And so then we can kind of compare notes, and I can get his opinion on, well, what do you think of that guy? Do you think that guy knows what he's talking about? Do you think that, this is going to be a good doctor? Do you feel like, he knows what he's doing, that kind of thing. And it's just to have that second opinion. I don't typically take him on my follow-up appointments. But for the first one, for the Lyme doctors, because that's kind of a little bit a unique situation, because for them, they actually don't take insurance. So when you go into like your first visit, the first visit can be, $300 or $500 for that first visit. So if
Wow.
you want to make sure that you make a good decision, because that is a lot of money to waste.
It is. And also having just that second person. I don't know about how it is between y'all two, but with me and my husband, when we go to meet someone, we can be in the same exact situation, talking to the same exact person. And him and I will walk away some of the times feeling exactly opposite of how that conversation went. Whereas I might feel like it didn't go so well. My husband will take away thinking it went really well, and he'll let me see what he thought of it. And sometimes the opposite, or I'll say, well, I kind of felt like this way about that person in the situation. Was I just being paranoid? And my husband will say, well, yeah, you might be looking at it like this because of this, or, just give you that different perspective. And also, missing that information. People receive information two different ways. You may look at it one way, and like that dress that was going around on the Facebook there for a while, like everybody saw it as two different colors. That's a perfect example of how you can see the situation. And that's a great idea to be able to do that, Donna. That's fabulous.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're someone that's, really having anxiety about your appointments, I look at it as that's a support partner, and you don't have to take your husband. It could be your best friend. It could be your sister. It could be your mom, whoever person, just someone who's there that can be a second listener. And, sometimes my husband brings up questions that are questions that I wouldn't have thought of, but, they end up adding something to the conversation. So, it's an idea. Again, some people may think that's, kind of hand-holdy and that kind of thing. And that's okay if it's not for you. But I've found it helpful as I've been kind of navigating the Lyme docs. And, it's something I would probably do going forward.
Yeah, but our partners are there to support us and care for us the way they want to. And when we do take them to that initial appointment or any appointment with us, it makes them feel valued, that they have a voice in your care as well, that they may see a lot of things about you that you don't even recognize that they could bring up to your physician. I know when my husband was first getting diagnosed and treated last year for some issues he was having, you know, I told him, I said, I don't think you're telling your doctor that you're having done. Like, I don't think you're telling him that for her. Can I please call her and talk to her about some of the things I notice in you that you may not notice or you may be hesitant to tell? And he said, yes, please call her and tell her. So I called his provider and I said, you know, Tim has given me permission, and he was actually on the way to see her. So she said, well, before you go on, I want to get his permission. And he had happened to arrive there, and she asked him and then got back on the line and said, okay. And I proceeded to tell her, you know, what I had seen. Now, she didn't discuss his information with me, but me just telling her that stuff and getting that permission from him for me to tell her, she was better able to attack him, or not attack him. Listen to me. Be able to address the situation better. He probably did feel like he was getting attacked.
That was a
and then when he came out, he said, you know, I was kind of hesitant of what you were going to say. He was like, but I'm really glad that you told her those things, because I didn't want to tell her those things. And but that might not always be the case. You just may be not seeing those things that your partner may be able to, and including them in your care. And that's just being considerate. And that's what they want to do. They want to take care of us. So I'm glad you brought that up. Did you have anything else?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for watching. I appreciate your time in watching this video about how to cope with the anxiety of going to doctor's appointments. If you have any other tips or resources that you'd like to share with us, please leave in the comments below. Or if you'd share this video out, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.